this kind of stuff. It is there. And we decided, you know what, instead of just talking about it and hopefully some people will take something out of it, let's bring ourselves together into this place and share wholeheartedly. No shame, no glory, just pour it all out. Thankfully, some of us have crossed the line and we've landed the jobs that we want. Congratulations, Rotimi.
Really?
For some of the others.
What? Where is this headed?
I had to do that. But I'll share context. Some of us are still in the journey. Wow. Hi, Charles. I friend he was rubbing powder. See now, see his forehead. Nice to have you. Some of us are still in the middle of that journey. Some of us are just starting. Wherever you're coming from, whatever phase you're in, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think we've been able to get a good number of people that have experienced the different phases, because even if you have landed a job at some point, you most likely will change it later on. So that whole phase, that whole journey is what we decided to do here. My name is Chiwen Nadi, and I'm the founder of Transition to Tech. It's a community, it's a company, it's an organization that helps early to mid-level talents, as well as mid to senior talents, discover their sweet spot in tech and transition to it through community building and engagement, reskilling and coaching. This is one of the most prevalent problems we find, especially with people who have already reskilled or who already know where they want to go to. They believe that, oh, I already know what I want to do. This is who I am. Why are the recruiters not coming? Why don't we have 10,000 jobs? All they said was that I needed to be a tech bro, lock my hair, buy white sneakers, buy a Mac laptop, maybe even use one of those nice fancy headsets, and the recruiters will come, Google, Meta, and then you reskill. Maybe they even said, okay, go and do UTIVA. And after doing UTIVA, you come back, you're like, no offer letter, what's happening? You apply the first time, apply the second, and then you're like, no, this is not for me. Or you even try, you get an interview, 1 or 2 or 3, and that's it. But then some people give up, some don't. But we realize that once we started realizing that some people have an application to interview ratio of 400, 600, then you realize that this thing is not as easy as we think it is. And many people have faced it. Many people are facing it, but nobody talks about it. So we all tend to personalize the problem and think it's just us. And as much as we talk about it in different circles, we talk about it in different spaces during coaching calls and stuff, we said, okay, you know what, let's just actually gather everybody that has experienced something like this. Let's bring them together. Let them share of their own experience. So it's not like we are the ones that said it. We're not trying to advise you. Come and hear from an Oga that has done it or is still doing it or has gone through it. And that's what we decided to do. I took advantage of my global talent community and I leveraged 3 fantastic, amazing people in that community. We have Rotimi Ogunwede, we have Charles Njoku, and we have Obi Okafo. They are all fantastic people. They all have a journey. None of them, this is not their first rodeo in tech. Some of them have even done all sorts of funny things and they've landed here. UK considered them to be global talent, exceptional people. Whether it's scam or it's not, we will find out. So that's it for introduction. I spent the past 11 to 12 years in tech, of which the first 7 of which I was transitioning and I didn't even realize. And that's what made me feel like, you know what, this is something that we can do. This is something that we should do. And let's get more people into tech, especially the non-technical parts of it. And that's why we're here. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself. Rotimi, over to you.
Wow. Throw me under the bus.
Of course.
Okay, my name is Rotimi. Like she said, I've been opportune to work across different industries in my career. I've done agency, client servicing, client side. For avoidance of doubt, I'm not a developer. I work in marketing, so I'm a marketing professional. So I crossed into tech about tech marketing. Don't let me say I crossed into tech. Yeah, I crossed over marketing about 6-7 years ago. And yeah, it has sort of remained my my forte ever since I sort of got into it. And I think it's fun. I mean, it can be pretty daunting sometimes compared to established corporates or established institutions, because I think with tech you work mostly with startups, say for the Fango. Is it Fang now? They've changed names, so whatever it is, they are now. But basically, that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Rotimi. Benedicta is our in-house career coach and customer success instructor. So over to you.
I was hoping Chima would not call my name next,
wow.
But okay.
Wow. You know better.
My name is Benedicta. I am, yes, the career coach and customer success program manager. Before now, I had worked in tech-enabled businesses, and I didn't even realize that I was in tech till I met Chinwe. And she started to talk about it. I was like, oh, so there's such a thing as no-code tech, because, well, everybody thought tech was some guy sitting in one dark room coding. So yeah, that was my image of tech. Anyway, I have worked across operations, customer-facing roles, a bit of QA. I've done all kinds of things. So I'm kind of like a generalist. And well, it was while I was transitioning to tech, this interview thing showed me Shaggy. And so that's what I'm here to talk about. I have learned things from there. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today to share what I've learned.
Thank you, Benedicta. We're happy to have you. And yes, some of those things that you showed you, we would like to hear it. I know some of it. Charles.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charles Njoku, and so many things. But more importantly, I'm a product designer and also co-founder of a tech startup called Spire. My tech journey is sort of interesting. There are people who would ask me, I would say, probably I've been doing tech since I was 12. And there's some people who would ask me, like, oh, my professional tech career started far back as 2014, 15 or thereabout. But yeah, my parents own a printing press. So I started doing graphic design from a very young age. And did that for most part of that time up until around 2014 or 15 or so, when the startup boom and the tech boom started expanding across Nigeria from Lagos all the way to Enugu and all that. And that was when, back then in uni, I just decided, you know what, this is probably where my future really lies. And I left the prospect of going to medical school to actually do tech. And I've been doing that for all the while. I've had the opportunity to work for both small, big, and medium-sized organizations, some of which some of you know from working with Softcom and also working in sort of consultant capacities for places like Health, Access Bank, and the rest before moving to the UK. Before moving to the UK, which I've also had the opportunity to work for Infinity and Lloyds Bank. So yeah, aside all of that, I also co-founded a startup called Spire. We're building a product discovery software for product teams to be able to understand their customers and users better. So yeah, that's me.
Angela, please could you mute your laptop?
I just unmuted it.
Oh, I want you to mute it now. Because we couldn't hear Charles. Charles was talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now you know.
Wow.
I've muted her. Thank you, Obi. Obi, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Jerry. Everybody here is my daddy and my mommy in tech because you guys have started. Okay, I was a bit late to the party, but we are here. That's the most important thing. I started 2017. I got some scholarship or something to learn how to code, and I learned. But after I finished uni, I did the internship for like 3 months and I went back to uni. I studied English language. So my only superpower was that I could write and I could talk. However, I finished uni, and where I did, during that COVID period, I was supposed to go for youth service, but I didn't get it. Then I fell into product management for a startup called Zen Finance. And it was like a junior product manager type of role. And I had fun with it. I enjoyed myself. I finished that and I moved on to Civic Tech, where I was a product manager again. And after that, I moved on to FinTech, where I was a product manager again. But here, I transitioned to operations. So I was their COO. I am their COO. Why do I keep putting this in the past tense? I am their COO. And it was just, I feel like tech for me is an eye-opener that you don't have to know how to code anything really. If your core skill is writing or talking or putting things together, that's enough to get into the field and change whatever scope you're in. So that's what like my journey in the last, let's say 5 years. I can't count 2017. I was very useless that time. I think in the past 3 years has taught me in tech. So yeah, that's my own transition journey, basically. Thank you, Chinwe.
Thank you, Obi, and thank you all for the warm introduction. Welcome to everyone else who's just joining us. We are having a conversation around application rejections and the way forward. So let's get right into it. Who has the highest application rejection ratio?
It has to be Mr. Rotimi.
Why? Do you know something we don't know?
Wow. He has been there for a long time, so I'm guessing.
Wow.
Why do you think he has been there for a long time?
He just
I thought Charles was born in tech.
I'll be 12 years old running things in town. Charles, maybe they've been rejecting you since, but he finally did.
Yeah, but I mean, I usually don't check until I think just the first time, the first job I got in the UK, for example, it was one day I just decided to look at LinkedIn, the section that shows you the amount of applied jobs. And I was shocked that I applied 200 plus, sent 200 plus. That's the only time I've ever really checked how many times I've sent in applications or rejections and all of that. But I've never really bothered. And that's probably because back in Nigeria, for example, until I moved to the UK, I hadn't applied for any job for the past 2 years or more, because usually most times people literally just do referral, make recommendation, or I get headhunted, what's it called, by talent managers and all that. So I never really got into the whole sea of sending applications. It was until I moved here that I started getting into the sea of application. So I only started knowing rejection late down my career. I never really applied to stuff. I just moved in and out places because maybe I did a good job here for somebody and they wanted some specific skill set or someone that has experience with something specific, and I get recommended and all that. But yeah.
What I'm hearing is that you didn't know rejection until you changed locations. So that means something major happened in your life and you had to rearrange yourself. And that's when it hit you that your local champion title in Nigeria would not cut it in another country. Okay. Rotimi, what about you?
So I think I'm in a very similar situation to Charles, right? So in Nigeria, I can't remember ever applying for a job. Yeah.
You guys are not. Oh, wow.
Like I don't. I mean, I know I had a resume in Nigeria, but I don't remember if I ever sent an application for a job in Nigeria. Like I don't think it happened. But just like Charles said, when you get into a no man's land, and life sort of just dawns on you, and it can be quite daunting and challenging at the same time. Like like where you're coming from, in coach, you're a superstar, and people sort of value what you bring to the table, but now people are asking you to sort of, you know, prove yourself all over again, and they're doubting your ability to do what you know how to do. And that makes you question yourself. So I think, so initially I didn't take it serious, right? Because I wasn't job hunting in the UK. You know, I was just like, you know, doing the application of vibes, and, you know, you do interviews. Then there was a particular day I checked. So I just searched in my email and I checked unfortunately, I checked for unfortunately, because that's like the
keyword.
The keyword, right? And I saw about 600. Oh yeah. And that was when I was like, oh shit, this is bonkers. Like, how did this happen then? And I just realized there were a lot of differences in work culture and also market fit, right, that needed adjustment, right? I mean, in the course of my interviews and applications, I realized a lot of things had to change, and you had to like be more tailored in how you applied, you know, yourself to certain things. So yeah, but I think in total, I probably be like 1,000 applications.
That's really interesting, especially because all of these 1,000 applications happened after you crossed the border.
Oh yeah, and I think, I mean, it's also what has to do with your level, right, where you're at in your career. So I mean, I think for junior level people, it's always a lot easier to get a job easily when you relocate. But when you get to a certain point in your career, I mean, at my last job, I was a C-level exec. It became a huge problem for anybody to want to take me on board, because everybody was like, man, we can't afford the benefits. How do we even pay this guy, right? And, you know, that sort of just piled on the rejections as much as it could. So I think that's what primarily contributed to it. So yeah.
Does that mean that you were getting offers, but you self, when you looked at the offers, you're like, nah,
But
not me?
I mean, that's the thing, right? So how do I explain it, right? So I had a conversation with one of my friends that he got a job in a company, and the pay was, I can't remember how much the pay was, right? But 2 months or so after joining, he got another job. But it was just like, it's fine where it was, right? And now he's been at that same company for 2 years now, and his pay hasn't changed much. And that's what just made me realize you might as well just have coconut head and go for what you want, right? And, you know, that's what I did. It might not work for everybody. I mean, Charles is raising his hand to us.
Of course. And guys, if you have questions, if you have comments, please drop them in the comment section. So we'll just be picking them random. This is a very random conversation. Let's not make it too stiff. So Charles, you raised your hands.
Yeah, he was making a point, and I could easily forget chipping that in. So I just wanted to chip it in. And it was a thing about how you get to a certain level, and at some point, if majority of the rejections I was getting was that, we think you are too qualified for this role. I mean, because considering I still leave the fact that I co-founded a startup. I've raised angel investment. I've done this, done that. It's usually all in my cover letter. And they're like,
You want to come and take their work?
There was actually an interview. The manager gave me, after the whole interview, instead of sending me an email, she fixed another call just to give me feedback. And she said she's enjoyed speaking with me, seeing the work I've done and all of that. It's impressive and all of that. But for the role they are looking to hire, it feels like there's going to be, in her words, there's going to be a power tussle between me and the person that's going to be my manager. Because in her opinion, I'm more experienced than the person. So if they hired me, if they were trying to find a team lead or a manager for a different product function, it would have been an easy pick to hire me. But the role is to work with an already existing function. And it's a senior role, but you're going to be working in a function that already has the manager. So she was like, she needed to give me that feedback personally because she knows how crazy the market can be. And you start to feel like whether you don't know the work you're doing. But yeah, so there's that experience, and it's just usually I literally had to call somebody back in Nigeria. Was it 2 weeks ago? And I was like, looks like it'd be like say I next year I could just pack my load to go house. I was like, by the end of the year, if something stable, because the only thing I've been easy that sort of like come easy to learn is contract gigs. Obviously, they just want your experts come in and do stuff and step out. Well, I'm like, it's not stable, but yeah.
Don't pack your load though. There's still work. Obi, you be raising your hands.
Yeah. So let me just see why I think I'm talking now. I think both of them practically said what happened to me as well. I was doing this C-suite level job in Nigeria and I was earning in dollars and I was living my best life. Then I moved here. Everything was like, it was like, it declined crazy. And I was like, what is the next step for me after this? LinkedIn, I literally died on LinkedIn jobs. I would sleep and wake up on LinkedIn jobs. When you said we were going to do this, I went to my computer and I typed the word unfortunately. It had a mixture of like maybe both Disney Channel and all, like he had a mixture, but everything that all the unfortunately on my phone, on my laptop was gathering about 3,000 plus results, which I am sure that half of that was job offers telling me, no, we don't want you and all of that. So there was this feedback I got as well. And I wasn't even going for C-suite role. I'm a humble girl. I've been going for normal product manager. Let me just go back to my roots. But yet, and I had that chief operating officer on my CV. And this man just told me, oh, you're a great girl, right? But you're young and you have a lot of experience for your age. And I'm like, yes, I know. But then like, you can check my reference. I thought that was the problem. He now said, no, the next time if I'm going to apply for this type of job, that I should throw away my chief operating officer role. That I should just keep my product. I should tailor it to be product management consistently that should just not overhype myself. I'm like, but I'm not overhyping myself. This is what it is. This is what I've done. Right. So I think if you also want to apply for a job, leave your achievements. Look at the roles that like the the description, and find out what you have done around that description and tailor your CV to exactly what those things are. Like this, how will I put it? What's the word? Direct the CV to be exactly what the job description has entailed. And the moment I did this, I got an offer and I got a job. And I thank God for my life. I finally made it out of the trenches, but it was hard. It was hard. It was a lot of rejection. I remember this man sent me an unfortunately, and I got pissed off. I was like, okay, you know what? Give me feedback. Tell me why I'm not good enough, because feedback helps. And he wouldn't reply me. And all of that can really just make your morale low, and you wouldn't even want to do anything at the end of the day. I just, like Charles said, pack your bags and go home and hit the road. So yeah, you have to just consistently keep tailoring your CV and have that we move attitude, because you actually have to move at the end of the day. You actually have to move. Yeah, that's what
Thank you so much, Obi. That's so profound. And I think this also goes to everyone who has, like Charles, founded something, raised funds, done something magnificent. If you know that you still want to come back and collect salary, then you maybe want to not exactly throw away your experience, but find a way to coin it as a very fantastic product manager, as a very fantastic commercial lead, just so you get in. I think that that's useful. Who here has experienced the kind of rejection that made them want to call the person and just insult the person?
Everyone.
No, who did anybody do that? I'm actually looking at Benedicta, because Benedicta has watched a recruiter before.
I sent a nasty stinker once or twice.
How did that go?
Doesn't
and would you do it again? And you advise us to do it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would advise you to do it after you get your first job. Get your first job before you start blasting recruiters or companies. But I mean, funny enough, I was having this conversation yesterday with one of my friends, and we're just talking generally about workplace environments abroad, right? It's a lot different from the Nigerian ecosystem. One, we constantly have to prove ourselves on the job. Then, because we are also Black people or Africans, there's that, whether the bias is there or not, naturally you start to think maybe there's a bias, right? Because you didn't grow up in the culture. So there's a lot for you to learn and unlearn as you work within the environment. And one thing I've also come to understand is we're actually very skilled, right? As African talents, we're actually very skilled. We are very hardworking, right? I know one of the biggest problems we have is paying attention to details, right? Now, and I think it's also a function of the country. A lot of us feel like, you can finesse your way. Maybe you guys have this code. The app is working, but the back button is not working. Don't worry, push it to staging. Let's see what will happen. We'll fix it later. Those are some of bad habits that we sort of have back home that you need to like do away with, which is why I said learning and unlearning. But taking that away, we're actually very good people at what we do. And more often than not, the recruiter that you're talking to, whether your first stage or your second level interview, knows absolutely nothing about what they have asked you. Like they are dumbstruck whenever they're talking to you. So more often than not, they don't understand the lingo. They don't understand the terms you're using. They are reading from a JD and a sheet that they have to mark. So they really don't know how to assess your skills until you interview with somebody that is actively in that frame of work, and you can really prove yourself. So some of these recruiters are also very misleading in their opinions or their comments. So more often than not, it's important that you get you get it out there. I mean, the first recruiter I ever blasted was one recruiter that had reached out. We had spoken like maybe twice, and she came back saying, oh, because they don't do visa sponsorships, they won't be able to go ahead. And I'm like, at no point did I ever tell you I required visa sponsorship. And this speaks a lot to your attention to details. And if you don't have attention to details at this point, I see no reason why we should even bother, continue conversations and all that. Sometimes you should gloat. If you have the opportunity to shine on a recruiter, please, by all means, do it. That's my own.
I was saying within context, if you are a first timer, please don't. Like
Please,
Rotimi said, you should have gotten your first job.
Get your first job before you start blasting people. If you don't have that, I mean, if you're still trying to get that, UK work experience on your resume or your CV, remain humble, right? And I think it could work, either ways, right? Some people will say while you're job hunting for the job you really want, if there's anything, on the side that you can do, you should do it. And some people will say have coconut head and, chase for what you really want. What I'll say is, depending on your financial situation and how buoyant you are to fund your life abroad, you would have to choose. But I mean, if you don't have a lot of money, to pay your rent and your bills on a consistent basis for the next 6 months, if you see job for Tesco, do while you're applying whenever you get home, right? There's no shame in it. I mean, I have a friend that when he came into the UK about 6 years ago, his first job was at ASOS as I can't even remember, and he was paid 16,800 per annum, right? So you can imagine how ridiculous that is, right? But now he works with Adobe. So there's always that early stage where trying times, but you would always get through it.
Thank you, Rotimi. We seem to have been talking about mostly those that have relocated. So I have a quick question. I know your experiences, at least from those of you that have talked now, have been that when you were in Nigeria, you didn't struggle. So does that mean that there's work in Nigeria?
No.
So I was,
Oh, please, shall talk.
oh, okay. I was about to answer, no, so to give you context, so actually this is factual, you can go and check it yourself. I randomly just typed in product designer and changed the location to Nigeria. And I promise you, it didn't go past first 2 pages. It was just 2 pages, meaning it wasn't up to 100 to get. If you check that same role in the UK, you're likely to see over 2,000 jobs. Obviously, they might have been posted a while ago. If you narrow that search to in the last 24 hours, in Nigeria, you see no results. In the UK, you are likely to see from 50 to 200. There's no job in Nigeria. If I know, for example, what's it called? I mentor and manage a couple of communities. Like I promise you, off the top of, if somebody meets me today and say, you know what, I want to hire 100 designers, I promise you, I'll give you 500. You get, so there are people who have gone through boot camps, gone through all the go to go. Well, there's no job for them. So there's no job in Nigeria. The difference here is, I think I was telling somebody that sometime late last year, December, because I moved in August. By December, I was having serious withdrawal syndrome, and that was almost slipping into a bit of depression. And it took me months later to start to reflect on why I felt that way. I promise you, it is interestingly social capital. Back in Nigeria, you get to a certain point, there are some things you don't struggle for, and it's just merely because of your social capital. You get here it's very different. You are going to, like the chip on your shoulder, you're going to drop it. You're going to, in fact, to be fair to anybody who is yet to move, it would do you good to drop it at MM2 or MM1 or Nnamdi Azikiwe, anyone you're flying from. Or if you carry it all the way, shall drop it at Heathrow. Because you will be humbled by force. And I recently had, the last job I was at, and recently had a very funny situation that I was so mad because in all of it, I felt really insulted. And I was telling my friends that I don't know any company in Nigeria that would, what's the code, do this to me or that would talk to me like this in regards of the situation. I was like, and this, to my point, Rotimi was saying, the dynamics of working here is tricky, it's funny. No offense, but a lot of them don't even know what they are doing. You get, but they have been at these jobs for 20-something years. And I'm always shocked. Like, for example, the last job I was at, I met my teammate, and the guy he's 37. How long have you been working here? 12 years. So pretty much off uni into this job and has never done anything else. And then there is me, who, not counting companies, I probably have worked on over 20-something products. You get 1.5 of which are live and across different companies. So literally spreading my wings here and there. So when we get into work argument or something about process, it's always very tricky because now for someone who has been in that company for long, they sort of have more influence with whoever is supposed to make changes than you, who, for example, I'm always very only concerned about getting work done. I don't care about, like, not like I don't care, but I don't pay so much attention to the politics that happen around businesses you get. But unfortunately, when you come here and you want to work, and as a Black person, you have to pay attention to it. You cannot run from it. You have to pay attention to it. You have to be a certain way, take some cues, and speak out really.
Obi, you have the floor.
Obiageli, you have the floor. Yeah.
Okay, I thought Chima was going to say something. Okay, so basically what I wanted to say was the fact that we've been talking about UK, and we know half of the people here are Nigerians. So I would like us to dive deep into our Nigerian experience and talk about how we got into tech, how we got the first job, landed the first job. So I'll just talk about mine, right? When I finished my supposed scholarship, where they wanted to use code and murder me, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. I wanted to do something that was non-technical, right? It was difficult for me to penetrate the field, like to get into the actual field that I want. If I didn't even know what I wanted, I actually thought I wanted to do communications in tech, which is, help people write maybe, what do they call it? Newsletters, like just because I studied English, it was just logical for me to think that way. That's all I ever need to write. But it was the consistent, no matter how many times I wrote to like tech companies online, I didn't even really understand how LinkedIn worked then. This was like back in 2019. I was the fresh graduate. I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing at that point. Whenever I applied to a place, I didn't have anything on my resume that was encouraging. So I would have people give me, oh, unless you want to become like a junior back-end person. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I want to write. Do you have any writing jobs? And that was difficult for me. Eventually, I found someone that said, why don't you do product management? Come and shadow under me in a particular company. So my advice is this, right? If you are transitioning to tech, do not be afraid to work for free. This is the truth. In Nigeria, if you want to get that first leap, that first job, you might not get any money, or they'll pay you like nonsense. You earn little, right? But just think about it as, I need this experience on my CV. I need this experience to be on my CV first, then to be able to land the roles that will pay me the money that I want. That is the gospel truth. There's no need of us. All of us were sounding like, oh, we have made it in life. It's a lie, I don't know about that. Me, I've not made it in life. I am trying to figure out myself. I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next, right? And I've not made the type of money, the kind of blood money that we all want to make in this tech that we're in. So the truth is, you have to start first you have to shadow someone and learn all that you can within that period. So do not be afraid to send me a message or anybody here, or like randomly be bold enough to go to someone on LinkedIn and say, I want to work in your company. And the person is saying, oh, we don't have money. No, I said, don't worry about the money. I just want to work because I want to transition into tech and I haven't gotten there yet. People in tech like free work. They love it. They think they're using you as a lie. You're the one using them. That's the truth. So please do not be afraid to say, my first opportunity might not be paid. That is what they don't tell you on time. And then leave you to hang out. You do boot camp, finish, come out, nothing. It will be as if it's your village people. Say, lie, there's nothing out there. Nobody wants to pay you to be a beginner in their company. If you see, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be like 1,000 people lining up for the same job, right? So if you want to get that first leap, find somebody on LinkedIn, write to the person, beg, they will give it to you. And you can do your trial and error. And put the person on your CV and then apply and say, oh, I worked as and guess what? They might even like you enough to give you a reference, right? It is the truth. I don't know, any other person can jump in right now and say what they're
piggybacking on that, right? And as much as we're talking about application rejections, for those of us that are in that space where you don't even know how to get to the part where you're even rejected, for starters, what Obi just said would be useful, because somehow we've been talking about the part where you get to an interview. But if you think about it, the ratio for applications to interviews sometimes runs in the thousands. So what is the problem? Why don't we even get called for interviews? What are we doing wrong? If you think about it, I think when we put this out on the group, a number of people talked about it, and nobody had less than 100 applications to interviews. So what is wrong? What's the problem? My personal story is that for the past, since I've been working, literally my whole 11 point something years, I've never gotten any job that I applied for. And it's not that I didn't apply. From day one, when I got fresh out of school, if I apply, I won't get it for some reason. Whether it's my CV that is working on, I don't know. But I've always gotten either through a good job done or referrals. It did stop me, and it hasn't stopped me yet, but I will still get it, at least for full-time jobs. So for those that are doing this, Rotimi doesn't have this experience because he was a boss when he was in Nigeria, clearly.
Oh, God.
Charles has been a boss since he was a child, clearly.
Founder.
But for the rest of us who are in this space, right, who, even when you were in Nigeria, you were sending application, you've crossed border, you're still sending application, wherever you are, what is the thing? And Benedicta, you can weigh in on this as well. What is the thing that doesn't get us past that first door? Before we even cross or we start to talk about, oh, we're here, and then all the biases that are available when you go to a different location, right? But before that, what is the thing that stops us? Charles said something here now, and he said he checked in Nigeria, how many jobs? They're no more than 2 pages. So, and there are people that are applying. So when we apply, why don't our CVs get in? Why don't you get any eyeballs?
Okay, I'm just going to allow Rotimi say what he wants to say, and then I'll say what I want to say.
Okay, thanks, Benedict. Thanks for giving me. So what I wanted to say was just piggyback of what Obi said, and I just want to say, it's not just tech. Any career in particular, right? Your first job probably won't pay you much, right? My first job ever, I was paid 5,000 naira as my salary, right? And it didn't do shit for me. But guess what? I was at that job for like a year plus before I joined GT Bank. But I was able to show that I had like considerable experience before I moved on to banking, right? And from then on, I was able to like cross into, different companies as well. Now, it's from my experience in hiring people in Nigeria, the biggest problem I've had to deal with is the fact that a lot of people are not employable. If I'm going to be very factual, like you will get 100 applications for one job and 90 of them, you cannot, even if it's front desk, you cannot hire them because they've done a lackluster job of putting together their CVs. Like you're applying for a job that says maybe content writer, and you're copying and pasting the email you sent to Banwo and Sons company, and you're like, dear Mr. Banwo, and you're copying and you're pasting it for a job at Angela Enterprises. Like, think about it, and you want me to consider you enough to have a conversation with you. I won't. Then you read some people's CVs and you're wondering, what exactly are you applying for? Like, it does not, like, it's not jiving, right? If you tell me you want to do internship, let's know you want to do internship. Then you tell some people, you're even gracious enough to say, okay, you know what? Let's listen to you, and you want to do internship, and they say, oh, is it going to be a paid internship? I say internship, oh, it's not paid. And that's it. They're not interested. I'm like, okay, what do you want? Do you want to get the skills, or you want to get the money? And I think social media has also created a huge facade. Everybody wants to earn millions of tech money. Tech bros are earning millions. I can tell you, tech bros are broke. There are tons of tech bros like that cannot even pay for breakfast or pay for data. Forget about what you see on TikTok, where people tell you you work from home, is remote. It's a lie. Forget all those things you see on socials, man. I go to work 3 days a week in the UK, more than I do when I was in Nigeria. I stand on the train like I'm on the motorway. Like it's the grind, right? You need to get off your high horse, and most especially when you're just trying to get into a career and you think you're some important person. Trust me, nobody is important. Even the CEO of the company is not important. If the board decides they can fire the CEO. So what exactly is where is your importance coming from? That's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Rotimi. You and Charles will not kill us. They say hang your pride at MM1 or hang it at Heathrow. But anyway, to the question that Chinwe asked, as Rotimi mentioned, there are many people that are not employable, but I'm going to talk about people that are employable. Generally, when you want to apply for a job and you see the JD, do you even have the skills for that job? That's the first thing you should think about. Am I skilled enough for this? And the skills shouldn't remain in your head. List it out, look at the JD and say, okay, these are the skills they're looking for. I know how to do these things. Put it on your CV, right? And then when you get past that skills part, you can now send your CV, send a proper CV. Rotimi is right. There are so many, if I say everybody here should send me their CV, trust me, I'll see one wrong thing there. And that's me being gracious. So for most others, I'll be like, nah, this won't even cut it. And that's what's happening with most people. You say they are rejecting you, but your CV is not even allowing them to say, come, let's talk, come and sit down with us. And so I'll say to bridge that gap, to even get an interview, you need to work on your CV. You need to communicate your skills and your achievements and everything you've done in a way that is relatable, or at least will get you a seat at the table, or will get you an invite to even talk and meet with an actual human being. Because many times it's not, okay, many people don't like to say this, but this thing goes through a system. A recruiter will not look at it. It will go through an ATS, and when it is passing, and they've already put certain words, keywords from the JD there. I think Rotimi or Charles mentioned earlier that the first person you speak to doesn't even know what the job is about. They don't really understand it. That's the recruiter. So they are just working based on what they have been given. So someone says, I need a customer success manager, and they tell them specific things to look out for. And so when they put those keywords in their ATS, and these are things like, when you're applying and you see greenhouse, Ashby, fresh works, those kind of things, they are ATS, by the way. So that's what your CV is passing through. These words have been put there. And so when your CV goes through and none of the things they're asking for is there, you don't expect anybody to call you back. And in some cases, I know that you may have them even use job scan and put all the words there and they still don't call you. That one is not your fault. At least you know you did what you were supposed to do. So I think that's my take on it.
Thanks, Benedicta. You said something that I found interesting, and I think Rotimi also said it as well. Over the course of having to review a lot of CVs actually for different kind of jobs, I've realized that, and I think this is a Nigerian problem, actually an African problem. We are very bold, we are very vocal, but we do not have the skills to adequately articulate our skill set or our values. So it's either we don't even know our skill sets, and we see something and you see like, they said product manager, they said strategic. I'm strategic now. Okay, I'll put strategy there. Marketing, I market now. Maybe I sold something the other day. You put marketing there. So we've not done enough of a self-discovery to know our own personal skill sets. And even when we do, or when we've done that, we don't know how to articulate it in a way that will pass through the machine, like Benedicta mentioned. If all these resumes are if 70% of them are going to go through a machine, then it means beyond just understanding what the keywords are, you need to find a way to articulate your own skills, or not that you went to get it off of another job description, in a way that makes sense, and so you can get through stage one. And I think beyond the unskilled problem, is one thing to not have the skills for the job. It's also another thing not to have the skills to present yourself or to communicate your skill set. Because if you cannot communicate your skill set on your CV, how will you communicate the job you've done when you get it to even your bosses? Charles, you're saying something? Sorry, Charles, very quickly. There's a very interesting image in chat, something around CEOs are like husbands. The more boring they are, the more solid. If your CEO is making fancy speeches on social media, run. If anybody has any comments to that, please just respond. Charles, you're going to say something.
Yeah, just also a follow-up from your question and what has been said about hiring in Nigeria. I've also hired. Sometimes you think it's a skill problem, which fundamentally is. And I know we talk about how, what's it called, arranging your CV. My singular opinion about stuff like that is, no matter how you format your CV, To be honest, if you didn't do, you didn't do. You get. No matter how you format your CV, if you didn't do, I don't think CV formatting is the problem. And I'm saying this because what's it called? Recently, a friend of mine, we were just going over his experience with interview and all of that. And I told him one of my biggest problem is we have so many people with general knowledge of certain things. We have so many people with general knowledge of product management, UX design, UI design, but put them in a position where they are supposed to make strategic deductions from their skill to solve a business problem, and you see them lacking. You get every time I get into conversations with recruiters, one of the very most important things I always try to highlight is asking them what key needs or expectations would someone they're looking for need to succeed in this role. One of the reasons I ask those questions is it now starts to show the loopholes outside just knowing design. You get, how do I apply design thinking or stakeholder management, or because you see people write things like data driven and all of that. I was like, okay, here's data, drive this thing. You get, and you see they are lost. For example, let's take product management, for example. I've met so many product managers from in Nigeria, in the UK, all of that. And one of my biggest problem is, how are you a product manager and you can't ask customer questions to give you the sort of insight you need? You get used, everybody gets, there are templates that get asked generic questions. One day I was speaking to a product manager and I'll say, I saw the research questions you made. I was like, they are all leading questions. And I promise you, they didn't know what leading questions were. It's like, so there's a generic level of understanding of what product management is. People are used to learning how to conduct agile rituals or product management rituals, you get. But when you now start picking their creativity to use their skills to find sort of like uncouple, for example, first of all, uncouple a complex business or market problem, it becomes very tricky. You don't start seeing the loopholes. And one thing me and my friend realized is, while we have talent, we lack specialty. There isn't enough people that have specialty in using their skills to solve very, very key problems. You get, in fact, getting them to articulate how they would use their skill to solve a problem is still surface level, it's still generic. You get, I've been, and when I saw your post on LinkedIn, there's something I said, I've been on all ends, hiring, getting hired, firing, and getting fired. You get, and I can tell you, all of what's it called, the comparisons or differences between that. But more importantly, the biggest problem with hiring in Nigeria is people fundamentally want a job to get paid. And that would mean anything that gets them in is what they would do. You get, more than half the people you are going to have to review their CV. Then the next level is who is skilled enough to take initiative, to understand how to use their skill to solve a problem. And the problem is not far-fetched. You hear things like, people literally go from primary, secondary school, and university, and guess what? They're just doing the course for having degree sake. You get, you did business administration. How are you using that to administer anything? What have you administered? Or mass communication, please. We don't even have. Oh God, I don't want to be embarrassed, but you get my point. So it's also a cultural problem with how we learn. We learn as a necessity, not as a specialty or in function of solving problems.
That's a very thought-provoking statement. And I think that everyone who's here, who's currently on this journey, I think you should actually sit with what Charles just said and turn it around in your head, because he's not just speaking to a particular group of people. He's speaking to us as a nation now, literally as a continent. We learned because they told us white collar jobs. If you do this, you get this. And when you get this, you get paid. So that means that fundamentally, the larger group of us are applying for jobs because we want salary. Not necessarily because we are going to do the work, because you start to find loopholes. So if you're going to actually get the kind of job that you want, it means that there needs to be a mindset reorientation, that you're not going there because you want someone to pay you money. I tell people that in tech, you will find money. Once you find your feet, you'll find money. So there's no problem with the money part. It's now, are you delivering value? So beyond CV formatting, beyond some wicked recruiter or whatever, if you're not able to articulate or transfer your learnings, whether you've been to a boot camp or you spent 3-4 years at doing a BSc and then a master's, if you're not able to translate all of that into value, demonstrable value to an organization, then what are you doing applying for jobs? So I think that everyone here, in terms of taking steps or things or pointers that you need to move forward in the moving forward part, go back whenever you're applying for a job, sit with yourself. Why am I applying for this job? What do I want? Yes, of course, we all want to get paid. There's no mistaking that. But what value can I actually give for this? What tradable skills do I have that I can translate into value? And for who can I translate that value to? So if you can sit down with that thought, and it will help you actually reorient yourself, and it will help you identify. Most times we sit down, we wait for somebody else to give us feedback. Oh, we didn't take you because, or we didn't take you because. We're not always going to get that. So if you sit with yourself and you have this conversation with yourself, like, okay, will you take you? If they positioned you differently, will you take you? And for what will you take you? If you can identify what you will take yourself for, go for that. If you will take yourself only as a junior dev, please apply for junior dev. But if you want a senior role or you want a mid-level role, clearly there are some gaps, and you will do yourself a huge service by understanding what your gaps are and then reskilling for it. He said something that is very, very profound. We are very good at being generalists. And I think it's also a fundamental part of being Nigerian. The problems are intense. So you just need to do enough to get by. And once you get by, you keep going. And that we now forget that there's a need to specialize. There's a need to actually gain mastery. So if you take that same concept and put it into applying for jobs, or maybe we should even stop calling it applying for jobs. Let's start calling it delivering value. Maybe if we called it that, it will help us see things differently. I'd like to ask a question to Charles later. I know Obi had something to say, and it has to do with applying for jobs as a contractor as against as a full-time person, because I think that as a contractor, the concept of delivering value is more more important than as a full-time person, because it's almost like if you don't get it, you don't get it. So let's hold that thought. Obi, you had a question or a statement or feedback? You're muted.
Obi, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I went off the call and I came back, and I was coming back to say exactly what Charles said about being generalist and specialist. I had a call with a friend just this morning, Tunji, and he said exactly the same thing, because we were looking at how to build something, right? And he was like, oh, but the truth is, we Nigerians, all we ever do is we know it all. We don't even know it all. We just know specks of different things, right? And it makes us feel like we're special. But when you now get into the field of people with sabi, like I can't believe Charles first of all said drive the data, let's see. I can't believe when they not tell you to start driving that data. And because you don't even, the only thing you've ever done is to look at a dashboard and say, okay, this is the problem, this is the problem. But you can't actually analyze data. You can't translate data. You don't know what, you just know the surface level of things, right? That is what Nigerians are known for everywhere. And it's sad, even in my office, right? If they want to yab someone like Africans, not even Nigerians, that's the first thing they yab us as. They'll be like, oh, you guys always form like, but if you meet the Indians, these guys are gurus, because they wake up on morning and they say, you see this feature, I will be the babao of this particular feature. So literally what we're just saying is, we're just telling you to find an industry, right? and say, I will be the Baba of AI or Baba of health tech, or just find one industry where nobody can beat you at. And it's also usually better if you're transitioning to just go back to the industry that you're coming from and, you know, see the tech side of that industry and keep applying to that industry. It gets you the first foot in because you already have prior knowledge of where you're coming from, right? That's basically what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Obi. I like, even though you said the same thing, I like the take you brought into it. And then there's something you said, I don't know if people are taking notes. If you're transitioning, I know you've seen Rotimi now, you've seen his dread, you've seen Charles, you probably want to go and do marketing or you want to go and do design. If you're not coming from marketing or design, stay where you are. And just find the tech part of where you are, because when you're transitioning, you're literally going to be compared to the Rotimis of that space. And if you've not learned or you don't have as much skill or experience as Rotimi does, and you're not a whiz kid, so you might as well just stay where you already have base knowledge and then start to reskill in that area or upskill in that area. Continue to, like, you can't stop learning. And I think that's the most fundamental thing that I've heard today. Like, we are all saying, we all came here to complain now that they're not hiring us, Now we've turned the lens on ourselves. So Rotimi said we are not employable. Charles said it's not by cost, it's not by formatting, that we just want money. And if that is you, literally, we can all afford to be honest with ourselves. If that is you, you need to sit down with yourself. Okay, before I start applying again, nobody's going to shame my generation. What am I willing to do to get better? What am I willing to, how can I do this? Because it's one thing to say you want to do it. It's another thing to say, okay, how do I move forward? So I hope you guys are taking notes. I've been taking loads of notes. I have another question, right? Yes, Charles. Okay.
Someone wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. The same data-driven thing, but from a different angle. Everybody's writing data-driven because that's what they see on JDs. That's what ChatGPT is giving them. People are not writing their CVs. They go on ChatGPT and all the other resume AI and all the others, and then put it and then gets AI to write their CVs. And AI says a data-driven product manager. And they put it out there. They don't even know what it means. So many other people, like 20 people are applying to a product management role with the same CV because they got ChatGPT to write the thing for them. So I'm just going to say that even if you're using ChatGPT to write or any AI tool to write your CV, please sit down and still edit it. It's fine to use AI, but if you use AI without sense, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So use AI with sense, get AI to write, and then fine tune it, make it better so that your CV looks different from the next person's own. And then I was also going to say that some people actually have specialist skills, right? But their problem is articulating it. I've seen people that have like 17 years experience in what they do. But when you sit down with them and you're asking them questions, it's like, I don't know. Now, see, I decided last year that Nigerians have an articulation problem. You can come and fight me, no problem. Because you will sit down with these people and you're asking them questions, but you can't really understand what they've done. And you have to ask and ask and ask so many different things to get what they've done. And they've actually done good stuff. And no recruiter has time for that. Especially somebody that's on a clock doing 30 minutes interviews or phone screening. They're not going to sit down to ask all those questions. And so I think some people's skill gap would probably be communication. Just go and brush up, help yourself. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, in addition to what Benedicta said, and also picking up someone else, I was just going to give an example. Most times when you're trying to get recruited, I've seen the difference between speaking to people wanting to hire you in Nigeria and speaking to people wanting to hire you in the UK or somewhere else. And the very core difference is back then in Nigeria, or even now in Nigeria, I can easily waltz into a place and bombard them with loads and loads of all the crazy things I've done. And I'll be wild by it. And once you're impressionable, I promise you probably have gotten past the first hurdle or the first 2-3 hurdles. In Nigeria, once you're impressionable, you get, and what's it called? You have some like I said, social capital and go. The difference here is, I remember one time I ran my career right from my first job, and my first job was me being hired by my dad. You get, my dad hired me to be a post-production manager, and anything that came out from the printing press had to go through me, collating, stapling out. You get, so it was just a conversation. And by the time I finished, the person said, out of everything I have said, you get, there's just three things that really, really matters. You get. And today, when someone asks me to talk through my experience, actually, I only focus on those three things. In a business, there's three things that matters: the customer, the business, and the people in the business. Almost everybody you are going to speak with, whatever, especially in tech, almost everybody, they want to answer three things. Does this person have the skill and experience to understand who our customers are, help us find the problems they have, and help us deliver solutions to them? Does this person have the skill to collaborate with those within the business to understand and promote the things we want to be? And finally, will this person's skill and experience give us money? These are literally the three most important things anybody wants to learn from your experience. You get every other thing you are saying, whether you built, you had a what's it called? You follow Appian way, build something or this thing. Nobody really cares. You get, and it makes it easier to start articulating what you do. For example, a lot of people don't even know there's something called the STAR technique. I think it was one time I was speaking to a recruiter and they talked about STAR technique: situation, task, action, result. You get short, but it simply says, okay, what's the situation? So what were you asked to do, or what did you intend to do? What did you then do, and what's the result? You get, it's a very straightforward, simple technique to help you start articulating what you did. Because I promise you, like someone said here, you can literally work for 17 years and you actually haven't achieved anything. You just push papers around. You get. So at the end of the day, it will come down to understanding, people knowing what is the value of anything really that I have done. Today, when I was telling somebody recently, I think this morning actually, my friend, and I was like, do you know, I just realized I haven't designed a product. I'm a product designer, but I haven't designed a product end to end in the last 3 years. The last time I actually actively designed anything end to end the last 3 years. But guess what? In the last 3 years, the most I have done is help businesses uncouple complex problems. You get, use design thinking methodologies and several frameworks to uncouple complex problems, rally people around together. You get, build out a process map to help them see, you get, from problem to solution and then results, finding out. So every time I go into interviews to speak, I realize that's my strongest skill and I focus on it. And guess what? Most times recruiters will be like, you know, we have seen people with a lot of fancy portfolios. We really haven't had them really give us insight as to how do you take a problem and literally tear it down to the smallest finance pieces for even the next person to pick off and go on to build something on top of that. So by the time you start to focus on being able to articulate very key what your strengths are, it doesn't matter what other people are doing. If that your strengths, what they are looking for, it is you that will carry. If you like, let someone come and have designed Spotify or has sold 1 million copies of whatever, you get, obviously, yeah, they have results to show that. But if there's a specific quality they are looking for and you are able to articulate it better, it doesn't matter. I was telling somebody, I've seen portfolios way, way, way better than whatever I've ever worked on. Sorry, I probably have worked on multiple things than they have. It's not comparison, but it's just to show that they have their place, you have your place. And once you understand that, you get to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Charles. So for people that have started, that are already on this journey, right? We've talked about going back to the basics to understand delivering value. We've talked about CV formats. We've talked about understanding the skill set that the organization is looking out for. And then we've also talked about being able to communicate your value. But I'd like us to talk about very clear and concise steps now. Once you've gotten rejected, what should you do? And this is for those of us that have done this and have finally landed a job. You've gotten a rejection letter or a rejection email. Do you stop? Do you give up? Do you move on and just say, you know what, this tech thing is a lie, I'm going to go and start a business? What do you do? Where do you start from? Because sometimes, someone mentioned it here, sometimes the depression can get real, especially if you are in that phase where, you know, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but on Thursday and Fridays is when you get the most rejection emails. So if you leave yourself and you're having a bad day and you get all of that, it can send you down a spiraling loop, right? So what to do in terms of emotional wellness, but also in terms of how do you keep going and what are the clear steps you need to do? Being able to identify your own, is this a problem of I don't know enough? Or is this a problem of my CV is not good enough? Or is this a problem of this is just a wicked person? Or is this a problem of, numbers, keep going? What are the clear steps that we should take moving forward after a rejection? Obi, your hand was there before I even finished, so feel free.
So I think the first thing you should tell yourself, right, if you get a rejection, if you see that unfortunately, the first thing you should say is, this is just going to bring me one step forward to the job that I'm actually supposed to get. That is what it is. The more rejections you get, the faster you have to get a job, because it's a learning curve. You're learning that you can also, okay, first of all, when they reject you, it hits hard, but you reflect. That's what I do, right? I reflect the whole day. I'm going to be in what did I not do right that these people rejected me? If you are really concerned about the company that you applied to, you can email and say, could you give me a feedback why you rejected me? Feedbacks are good because that way you know what exactly the problem was and you can tailor the next interview to address that problem, right? It could be what you said. It could be maybe, I remember one of my feedbacks was that I didn't use enough keywords. And that was when I first started this whole interview thing. I didn't use enough keywords tailored to the job that I was applying for, which was not good enough, right? So I even knew that I was going to be rejected even before the rejection email came. So what I would say is first step is to reflect on what happened, but not in a way of feeling guilty or anything. No, don't beat yourself up. It's okay. Everybody, even Steve Jobs, the owner of Apple, was rejected back to back to back. If you hear his story, it's crazy, right? So it's okay for you to be rejected. Reflect on what the issue is. And after reflecting, right, you start developing like a personal development plan. Maybe you don't have enough, skills. If you want to start doing pet projects to build those skills, do it. It's not hard. It's for you to open your laptop and think, right? Start a personal development plan. How many weeks will it take me to apply for another job? What do I want to intend to do in those weeks that is leading up to when I apply for the next job? What will change in my CV, right, before I apply for that next job, right? So that plan is like an action plan to the next thing that you want to do. So reflect, build this action plan, talk to people that are senior in your role. LinkedIn is a tool for you to just ask anybody anything. People are not rude on LinkedIn. It's a lie. All the best mentors I have are on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, address someone, and do not beat around the bush. Do not say, how are you? And you don't do that. Come straight. Good afternoon. My name is, I'm looking for, say what you want. And the person might actually help you. Be friends with recruiters, not friends. What they call the connection on LinkedIn. Anybody that you see tech recruiter, apply. Like, just be a friend, connect to them. Because when they start looking for these things, your profile pops up because you already have those keywords on your LinkedIn profile, right? What else? That's what I call like be strategic about who you're connecting with. Don't go and just be following anybody on LinkedIn. No. Connect with founders, connect with HR people. These are the people you're supposed to be in associations with that LinkedIn. That LinkedIn is not for posting, no. Right? What else do I even do? Wait, I wrote this thing down somewhere. Let me go and check it.
So while Obi is waiting. Okay, yeah.
No, I'm done. It's just building.
Okay.
That's just the last thing I want.
Okay.
We have to have that's it.
Thank you, Obi. I hope you guys are taking notes, because if it feels like we're all just chit-chatting, but these are real stuff that happens. Something else, if you've gotten to the stage where you've had an interview, you can actually tell if you're going to be rejected or not. And one of the things you should do, you should never end a conversation, any kind of interview, without asking them what they think about you. In fact, you can actually rope them in a corner and ask questions like, what you've heard me talk, you've listened to me. What about my profile is not going to help me get this job? Or what about my profile is going to help me get this job? It guarantees you feedback. Even if the person was just taking notes while you were speaking, they will have to think about what they've said and they'll give you feedback. From that feedback, you can tell that, this guy is not taking me. But you've already collected feedback that you may not have gotten after they send you the email. And because you're there face-to-face, they are obligated to respond. So if you ask a question, once you get to do you have any questions for me? Always have a question, and then follow up with, based on the conversation we've just had, what about my skill set, or what about my profile or personality is not going, do you have a problem with, or what part of me do you think is going to be a problem for this role, in terms of what did they decide, what have they decided will be the key success factors for that role? That helps you understand, okay, this is what they've said, and this is what I should do in case no email address, in case you get a rejection email. That's one. Two, there are different types of rejection emails, right? And there are some that you will never find, they have no reply emails. So that means that you cannot respond to anybody. But if the email address that sends you your rejection email is an actual person, I suggest that you look up the person on LinkedIn and send the person a thank you message. Thank you for, even if it was just a templated, annoying, thank you, unfortunately, whatever. Still look up the person on LinkedIn. Most likely it's either a recruiter, a talent acquisition person, or if you're lucky enough, a senior people person in that organization, especially if it's a startup. Look up the person, tidy up your LinkedIn first of all, of course, and then send a thank you message plus as part of your connection, connecting with you. Thank you for the feedback. And if you feel like you want more, ask. The reason you're doing it so they can accept you. Even if they don't give you feedback, they can accept you. But also, recruiters tend to post roles on their own page. That way you can see it. And if you've had like an engagement with that person before that time, you can follow up and say, I see that you just posted this, I'd like to apply for this. But you also have to do that if you take note of something that Obi said. When you're applying again, please don't apply with the same CV without any improvements. Like the way you applied for A is the way you applied for B. Between application 1 and application 2, you should have learned something. And if you've been able to demonstrate your value in any kind of way, when you are sending that email or that connection message, you are also sending them a note to, here are this and this and these are the things that I've done in this space. If you have roles that are like this, most likely they will remember you when next they have a role, even if you don't fit. Apparently, recruiters do this thing where if you can engage with them, when their other recruiter colleagues are looking for stuff, they will just send your names to them. And you find that those ones are checking you out. And when you go and look for the person, who is this person? How do I know this person? They're connected with the former recruiter that you engage with. They are human beings too, and it's a job for them. They have KPIs that they need to deliver on. So if you understand it from that angle, you can also, log into that. Everybody that sends you a rejection email is a potential networking strategy, for lack of a better word. Tap into the person, connect with the person. Even if all you're just doing is building recruiter stuff, if they have a recruiter friend that puts up a message, they will see it and like it. You also see it because of the LinkedIn algorithm.
I'd also like to add, I'm not going to overflow what they've said. They said fantastic things. I'd also say that this job application thing is an iterative process. So when you've gone through all the steps, like you've gotten to interviewing with a hiring manager, and you notice that the problem has been getting an offer, it means that your CV is probably okay, and you maybe have the skills, but something is not right somewhere. It may be your communication, maybe so many different things. Maybe you can start looking at things like after an interview, right? Send a thank you email. Hey, it was great speaking to you today. Thank you for this, this, this. Say something personal, reference something in the conversation you had with them. So that way, it's like there is a connection. You sent an email right after. There are some wicked recruiters, and I call them wicked because they said they didn't progress some candidates just because they didn't send them thank you emails. Some others are not as petty as that, but the point is, it helps you stand out from the crowd. They are interviewing many other people that day, so you want to do something different that helps you stand out. Send a thank you email after every interview, whether or not it went well. Sometimes when you ask for feedback right after the interview, some people will tell you, no, I'm going to have to put my notes together, especially in the UK, it can be somehow. And they'll say, I need to put my notes together. I'll send you feedback right after. That's fine. When they send you that email, you feel like it's generic. There's no real feedback there. You can always send an email back, like Obi said. I used to drag people's pants. I will tell you, hey, especially if I've invested time in that process, like you're not going to go. You will answer me. And so, but if you're in Nigeria, don't do it. Or do it well, do it, be kind. But here, I usually say it like it's my right. Like, hey, I've invested time in this process. I've done this, done that. And I would really appreciate feedback, tailored, I specify tailored feedback that can help me in my job search process. The point of this is to get something that actually helps you go back to what you can work on. Because many times we can think A is the problem, but B is the problem.
Sure.
So there are so many different ways to look at it. I would also say start networking. Chinwe just mentioned a way. Obi mentioned another way. Look for physical events. Look for things. If you want to be a product designer, you want to be a product manager, whatever you want to be, there are events on LinkedIn. There are physical events. Go there, meet with these people, and just talk. Right? Somehow you're building connections, and if at some point, maybe somebody will refer you for something. And there's also a LinkedIn feature now that you can go to a company's page and say you're interested. So just go to the about, go to the company's page. There's an about section. Go to the about. Scroll down. You will see I'm interested. Your present employer will not know. Nobody will know that you've said you're interested except recruiters at that company. So if you click on that, at least you have also signaled that you're interested in that company. When LinkedIn automatically sends your profile to them. So that way somebody has gotten your profile. If they're not interested, that's fine, but you've shot your shots basically. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to add. I'd also say, like, take a mental health break if you need to. Sometimes the process is draining. Like if you need to take a week off or 2 weeks off, if you have the money to, or take a side job that will help you to be able to take a mental health break, and then just take time off. Don't apply, just get your head in the right place and then start applying again. Because this thing, whether you like it or not, these rejections tell on you, it affects your heart, it affects the way that you are. You will not know, you just start to behave somehow. So rather than you allowing it to get you to that place, just take time off. And the fact that they're rejecting and they're sending you rejections, it's not a rejection of your person. It has nothing to do with you. It's not personal, it's a business decision. So don't take it personally. They rejected, it's fine. In fact, if you want to make yourself feel better, like I do sometimes, I'm like, please, it's your loss. And I've sent that to a recruiter before. I've said, see, it's your loss. The fact that you're not taking me means that, and I did it, and if they want to blacklist me, that's their problem, but it made me feel better. So sometimes if you need to do certain things, do them, short of going to shoot somebody or kill somebody or commit crime. Yeah, that's what
Don't tell anybody.
Use discretion, no.
Don't tell anybody.
Use discretion, no. And then of course, if you're really early in the journey, just be humble, please. Your time will come. She's telling you now, she has paid her dues, so don't follow her footsteps like that. But every other thing else, solid stuff. Thank you guys so much. Does anybody have key questions that we have not directly or indirectly addressed, or contributions, or feedback? I'm going to the questions or the comments now. So we don't have any last words from guests. Charles had to drop off. He has a hard stop literally now. Does anybody have, from our panelists or from the general group, last words that you think that if you're here and you want to hopefully get a job within the next 2 months, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, 1 or 2 things? Rotimi, Benedicta has literally signed off with that, with what she gave us now. Rotimi, Obi, do you have any?
Right, I think for anybody that wants to land a job, regardless of the time frame, whether 6 months, whether 1 year, right? One of the most important things is be certain what you want to do. Be certain of what you want to do, right? Don't just be a CV shooter, right? This company is recruiting, you just blast it, right? If you want to be a content writer, apply to content writing specific roles. If you want to be a front-end developer, whatever language you code in, like look for those roles specifically. Because I mean, I would say I'm lucky because I can be a generalist because of how long I've worked and I've touched on different areas of marketing. But I don't think it's going to be that easy for every other person to be a generalist in the world of today. So you would most likely have to be a specialist first, which was the same thing in my own case. I was a specialist when I started my career, then sort of graduated to become a generalist, right? So pick a niche, focus on that niche, and start to build yourselves and build your skill sets in that area. And trust me, rejections will come. Like it will. It's not. There's nobody that is above it. Nobody above it. I mean, there's a Reddit group I'm on, and there's a lady that spent the last 10 years with Fortune 500 companies, right? And she's worked with all companies, right? As a product designer, and she's still getting rejected. And she was shocked. Like, I mean, I have all these great companies on my portfolio, and I think she applied to one, right, a startup actually, not even an established company, and they turned that down, saying she's not the right fit. So it's not, sometimes, unfortunately, it's not a testament to your skill set or your ability to do the job. Don't let it get to you. Get yourself up, take a breather, but you go again. So you get one rejection, look for 10 jobs that you really can do, apply for them, go for it. For every interview, take learnings from your conversations with the recruiters, improve upon yourself and how you answer your questions. More importantly, use the STAR approach in terms of answering your questions or dealing with recruiters. It helps to sort of see how you think and how you want to, work on the job. So, yep, that'll be all from my end.
Thank you, Rotimi. Benedicta, you raised your hand.
Yes, I was going to say, if you can afford it, work with a professional, especially if you have a deadline to meet, or well, maybe not deadline, but you have a target, work with a professional. But if you can't afford it, try as much as possible. There are resources online. You won't get everything, but there are resources online. Use those things and make yourself better. Charles and Rotimi just mentioned the STAR technique. It is quite easy. Use that to structure your answers. I usually tell people that I work with, clients and all, I would say that when there's a JD, if you can't afford a career coach, take the JD, put it on ChatGPT and ask it to generate questions for you. And when it generates those questions, right, for every question, find at least 2 to 3 examples that you have that can answer those questions. Structure it well so that you're prepared for the interview. And again, as he said, rejections are normal. So yeah, this is me out.
I'll be.
The same thing, have a tough skin, be resilient, right? You will get it. It's really a matter of, like I said, tell yourself, this rejection is one step away from my next, from the job that I actually am supposed to have. That's what it is, right? Just be resilient. That's my own advice.
Thank you so much, Obi, Rotimi, Benedicta. Does anybody have questions? Adenka, I knew you were going to just talk. I had to just call you in case you told me.
Yeah, you called when I was raising my hand. Look at that. So yeah, I mean, like,
it's been very nice. Everyone has said very interesting things. It's just like, for me, it's a bit different because I'm more from tech sales side, and we're doing tech sales from e-commerce days to hardware now, also doing software. But in any case, like one thing I've realized is rejections are for character building, right? If you're a salesperson, not every deal that you apply for, you're going to get. So, I mean, we're all going through. I'm also going to transition in a new location and applying for roles. And I realized that, okay, you have to do things differently. So every rejection that I've gotten, I mean, now I've been doing them in batches. So now I'm going through all the learnings from the previous batch and applying in a different way in the next batch of applications. And I also think very important that I think Obi just said, or I think Benedicta, get a professional. Like, I've been getting expert views. Chinwe is one of my experts, peer reviewer here. And I also have—
So in your mind, I'm not a professional, Abi. What are you trying to say?
I say that's, oh, sorry, my professional reviewer. And,
wow.
I'm also working with some other people to just optimize LinkedIn, optimize the CV, also get help on cover letters, and also be aware if all the roles you're applying for require cover letters, so you can do it. And I think that also from a lot of us, if you've done your previous role for like 3 to 4 or 5 years, and you've not been applying actively, maybe it's like dating. If you've not been out of the dating pool for a while, you are going to be rusty when you go back, right? So it's the same thing. So I think that's the challenge for someone like myself too. Also because, but in Nigeria, and I was thinking about it, I've known this for a while. Most of my roles, I remember somebody just told me, "Oh, apply for this one, apply for this one." I send my CV. I don't apply. It's like, there's this role, I send your CV, I send my CV, then I go to the interview. I'm always like the kind of person I feel like, at the interview, don't worry. I mean, this is the work they were doing. But getting into the interview is a bit of, oh, people just like say to me, oh, this is opportunity. And I talk to people a lot. And I realize that networking is very important. But when you get to a place where you don't have social capital, that you have to re-engineer your network and be more deliberate. And as an adult, making new friends a bit, you have to be more deliberate. So I think that everything is very useful. But bottom line is character building, right? And taking feedback and moving on. And yeah, very, 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 very good job from everyone. And I think I really like Rotimi's experience and Charles, the generalist. Thank you, guys.
I think I should probably reach out to Rotimi. He's in marketing, tech marketing, and it might be useful for you guys to connect. Rotimi, don't worry, I'm not setting you up.
I'm handshaking you online.
I just might be useless.
Rotimi was wondering because you were always coming for him.
Open disclaimer, I might just be useless as well.
Don't worry, you people find that you're both useless to each other. It's okay.
Wow. Thanks, Chiwe.
You know now. Anybody else? Feedback? No contributions, no feedback. I'm seeing some interesting names here. All right, that being what it is, thank you all so much for taking the time to join the call. It's been an hour and a half with 8 minutes out of our call. Well, we've extended by 8 minutes. This has been useful. This has been wonderful. I hope that you've gotten as much value from it as the rest of us have.